Welcome to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, CEO of Academia.edu, and today we're taking a fascinating journey into the world of pirates and corsairs, or more accurately, Spanish corsairs in the Gulf of Honduras between the years 1713 and 1763. The paper we're exploring is by Rafał Reichert. Remember, folks, as always, I'm here to neutrally present the author's findings, not to endorse their interpretations or conclusions. So, let's dive in. The core question at the heart of Reichert's work is, what role did Spanish corsairs play in combating British smuggling and protecting Spanish interests in the Gulf of Honduras during the 18th century, and why does this matter? Well, the answer ties deeply to the complex history of the Caribbean, colonial rivalry, economic struggle, and, honestly, the constant tug-of-war between empires over trade and territory. It sounds dramatic, sure, but the stakes really were high, with fortunes, lives, and entire communities shaped by these clandestine battles at sea. Maybe we should step back a second and tackle this. What even is a corsair? People often toss around pirate and corsair as though they're identical, but the distinction is actually crucial. That's something the paper emphasizes. So, basically, a corsair had official backing, legal permission from the Spanish crown to attack enemy ships, making them state-sanctioned maritime privateers. Pirates, on the other hand, were rogue, operating outside any law, a free-for-all of plundering. So these corsairs weren't lawless bandits, but, something closer to government contractors for naval warfare. Now, what set off the need for these corsairs in the Gulf of Honduras? Here's where it gets spicy. After 1713, following the Treaty of Utrecht, Britain gained the asiento, or the right to trade slaves with Spanish America, and a so-called navío de permiso to bring in goods, but instead of keeping commerce above board, smugglers took advantage of these privileges, leading to rampant illegal trade across the Caribbean. Suddenly, British contraband trade was exploding on the coastlines of Spanish Central America, and the Spanish authorities scrambled to respond. This is where corsairs made their mark. Spanish colonial governors were granted the right to issue official privateering licenses. Bases sprang up in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Campeche, Bacalar, and Omoa. Ships from these ports launched attacks on British vessels, aiming to choke off smuggling routes and protect Spanish commerce. Reichert's research leans heavily on both historiographical studies and archival documents. He dug through Spanish, Mexican, and Guatemalan archives to piece together accounts of these maritime campaigns. He found that these regional corsair activities, while not entirely new, had been largely underestimated in earlier studies. The focus is often on the big-name pirates of the age, but Spanish corsairs were a decisive weapon against British encroachments. Their operations not only disrupted illicit trade, but also generated income and, honestly, gave local economies a shot in the arm. Sometimes for the right reasons, other times, it's complicated. So what does this mean for you, listening today? Well, it's a reminder that the robust trade networks and rivalries in the Caribbean had far-reaching effects, sometimes shaping entire societies. Maybe if you're from Central America or the Caribbean, or honestly anywhere touched by this Atlantic world, your local history might be marked by these clandestine struggles. The presence of corsairs, smugglers, and these contested waters shaped migration patterns, economies, and even cultural identities. One kind of amusing side note, not quite related, but I recently read that at some Caribbean festivals, folks still dress as pirates or corsairs, not really thinking about whether they were good or bad, but just because it's part of the region's wild, layered past. It's funny how history seeps into the present in all sorts of unexpected ways, isn't it? But, back on topic, Reichert notes that Spanish corsair activities were sometimes seen as a necessary evil by the authorities, but eventually evolved into a respected profession. It became more than just naval firefighting. It offered a way for local officials and entrepreneurs to challenge British expansion. Even as, say, their own government sometimes didn't invest enough in proper naval defences. Key tangible insights from the paper. Let's recap. Corsair activity was rooted in official efforts to defend territory and stop smuggling, but it also drew in a wide cast of local and foreign adventurers, rewards from captured ships were split up in ways that actually supported port economies. Yet, these operations often led to diplomatic tensions and even sparked broader conflicts between Spain and Britain, escalating from, say, the inconvenience of lost cargo to full-on war. Crucially, Reichert also points out that while the Spanish corsairs didn't end smuggling, their efforts did tip the balance, reducing British influence in key areas and creating a legacy felt for generations. All right, that's our look at Spanish corsairs in the Gulf of Honduras, 1713–1763, courtesy of Rafał Reichert. I want to emphasize again, I'm here to neutrally present this research for your reflection and curiosity, not to advocate for any view of these complicated historical events. Academic work like this paper offers us pieces of the puzzle, not the whole picture. The past is never settled. It's always there for us to explore, rethink, and maybe argue about over dinner. Thanks for tuning in to In Depth with Academia. If you enjoyed this peek into maritime history, subscribe for more episodes. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember, history isn't just about pirates and treasure, it's about understanding the waves that shaped our world.